as we move through another lovely Lionsgate portal and this Leo season. For the 5D plane, those of you who are common sense individuals and the functional adults. So here's where anybody who doesn't know about the IHP content, we bring together the human, spiritual, and spirituality elements. Really, they're subject matters. So I've learned in the years of pursuing to support people to be their self, their true self, a lot of different topics. And then my lovely intuitiveness began to expand. So this is why we're a 5D mystic community, the unconditionally loving, pure consciousness people, which is 5D, which means, again, functional adult, common sense, emotional maturity. So in addition to learning about the basic psychology from our past psychology people and learning about ego and self, today we have a lot of other new information. Neuroscientists, there is a divide. The ones who believe in only ancients, saying you don't have a self, that you are a spirituality process and a consciousness. So see, here's with subject matters, when you prefer to use specific words, you don't navigate an integrated mind. So left-right mode don't work with all hands on deck. Your default mode network is not down-regulated so that you just engage in life with the ventral vagal nervous system, so social engagement. We talk all about these psychoeducational data points that I got to learn and still get to keep learning as I get trauma educational certificates to support people who want to move into their grown-up version. So personal development, or aka spirituality process, or the Enlightenment soul age group. Now, lo and behold, as a teenager, I didn't even know anything about the metaphysics as a terrorism land, and today I know a lot from my personal experiences, and also as an energy worker, a Reiki practitioner, and a distance healer specialized. When people say, I don't believe it can work from far away, or others talk about it as demonic because they actually don't understand that energy is energy. And these are people that are into yoga sometimes too, and so they know of Sadhguru, they know of his quotes, they use a lot of his quotes, and then they think that energy vampires continue to exist. So here's the part about the difference between subject matters and ancients and science, and the people who are not in a common sense 5D plane, not relating to information with Mahasamadhi Samadhi independently. When you only use your brain in a specific way, which I'm just going to use the ego self, that is of an immature, insecure, emotionally speaking person, there's a way that our brain reacts to belief systems when they're opposite whatever you believe. And that would be where neuroscience community, thank you. Your brain doesn't distinguish between belief opposite of yours and physical threat, which is why that reptilian nervous system, your fight, flight, freeze mode, gets engaged, and why we have a lot of the yellow adaptive children who are in a, I'm going to argue with you about it. So those remind me of teenagers, because when I was a teenager, we all were trying to prove ourselves to each other. That's why it's also emotional immaturity, which we have a new piece of content. I think it's tomorrow, or maybe after tomorrow. We have a full moon coming in. So for my 5D mystics, you're getting to enjoy a very beautiful balancing out, because you're seeing all of the different 5D educators. And so here's where we bring spiritual and spirituality together, because we understand that science and yoga, they're not actually opposites. We now call yoga science. Do you know that there's Buddhist psychologists? They have nothing to do with a supranatural or supernatural, but obviously if somebody believes in supernatural, that's where there's a different opinion, which is why there are people in the religious institutions of Christianity, theologians, who actually are writing up documents and making sure their followers consider a Reiki practitioner somebody who's using energy that they define of the devil or whatever it is, and it's a sad, sad thing. I love the man called Jesus. I love being raised with the concept of God, which is essentially unconditional love, and the essence of life, which is where, again, the 5D plane, we're not here to discredit, and we're not a plane that is separate in another planet or somewhere, which is where 4D, remember when I learned about 5D, I saw this image, it was 3 globes. I was like, huh. And they also said, 3D, 4D people won't see you. And I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting. I don't think they've created the invisible cloak, but I'll figure it out once we get to this 5D plane since there's a timeline for it. So the timeline is very interesting, and sharing it with 4D people is even more interesting, because here's where, as I was saying in one of our other shorts, they actually are enamored with their own light, and they even practice yoga with people that teach them actual wisdom. But apparently they didn't realize what it meant to fall in love with their own light. So to consider yourself as saving or as a light, and that means I'm a special group and you're not. So there's a lot of ways. It just reminds me of high school. And when I saw all these groups, I'm like, this is interesting. Now we have a bunch of different groups, and they all apparently didn't learn the basics of neuroscience and aren't using our lovely YouTube effectively, because it's all over the place, the good neuroscience stuff, by the way, not the ones who talk about emotions being silly and unreasonably needing attention. That's the part of your energy body is actually the emotional body. And again, you want to be a stickler for how this linearity works. You're not going to connect the dots because you're ignoring your own charge states in the first place. So anyone that I've talked to who's a common sense person, when I've explained the psychoeducation of our charge parts, they're like, wow, I can see that. I actually notice when I'm in this version of me or that version, because we don't actually go through a change. I mean, some people do, but those are the same people who don't accept that being their self is okay. So the part about not accepting that you have flaws and imperfections is something that to a mature, emotionally speaking person who has an ego, I, and any other 5D person will say, you know what, here's my name, here's the self that I am, whether it exists or not is ridiculous conceptualization that you're creating because I have a personality, which obviously makes me different than you, and getting agitated about it doesn't really seem necessary. Do you not know that learning is a consistent version of, when I learned about how Sadhguru explains why darkness is, the advanced yogis know about darkness, about Shiva and everything being in this plane. Very humorous to me to see people thinking it means emotionless people. And no, that's actually where you don't understand the mammalian heritage and nervous system of you, which can only be engaged if you feel safe to be yourself with other people, which means actually not being upset that I can think things differently and feel things differently than you. And when I say upset, I'm saying you would notice it from your body. So when I get my 2-year-old tone, and that's actually consistently within my lovely family dynamic, so here's where our playground is at. If anybody knows about detachment researchers, you'll have heard about the strange situation. And you'll have heard about how the child who has secure attachment reacts when the parent comes back. So secure attachment child approaches the parent, they reassure themselves the parent's there, and then they go back to playing. They look around, they play with other kids, they're at ease in their body. This is a secure attachment child. When we have the avoidant, they don't even turn around. But when they test this child's through a test finger something, I forget what it's called, but they see how their vitals are, the child will have noticed. Their body's actually very aware that this human being, who's my caregiver, or the caregivers are back. But they will seem like they completely have no reaction emotion. The preoccupied or the ambivalent, they actually have a very challenging time going back to playing because they're afraid the parent's going to leave, so there's anxiety. The disorganized attachment, which is separate from the actual insecure attachment styles or non-secure, categories, because styles is a whole different thing. Scratch the style one. There's 2 bodies of attachment researchers. They both do different things, even though they share with us similar information. So the disorganized, who has a subset of secure or avoidant or preoccupied, meaning ambivalent, they actually have a very uncomfortable way of interacting when the parent or caregiver comes back because it's completely unsafe. They have a defense mechanism and their attachment system engaged. So there's an inner conflict, an actual inner conflict that has a person develop a fragmented sense of self. The avoidant has a disconnected sense of self, and the ambivalent has a preoccupied, anxious sense of self. The secure attachment doesn't. We have a whole sense of self. And the majority of people are supposed to be secure attachment. I don't see them playing in a playground. So 5D loves to love. Share the love as we move into the balances. Come tune on in for more on relationships and how to be a functional adult. Have a great day.